simply no way you can stay with him, Jack. He's too big and he's got that great jumping ability. It's caught! Touchdown! Herman Moore!
I want it now and I ain't never gonna back down.
Welcome to The Rise. I'm Bryant McFadden. On this edition of The Rise, I'm excited to be able to catch up with one of the best wide receivers of his era. Played for the University of Virginia, also got drafted in the first round by the Detroit Lions. A leaping, sure-handed, big-time playmaker. Mr. Herman Moore will be joining me here on The Rise.
Moore fires. Ball is caught by Herman Moore. 20, 15, 10, 5, and touchdown. Moore gets into the end zone. And he's got 4 receivers out there. It's caught! Touchdown! Herman Moore!
Herman, it's an honor to be able to interview you. I'm going to just throw it out there. I didn't like you. I didn't like your quarterback. I didn't like Terry Kirby. I didn't like anybody that was associated with Virginia because I was a Clemson fan growing up. I didn't like you then, but I respected your game because you was a big-time playmaker for Virginia. So it's an honor being able to interview you. And, how's it? How you doing? How you feeling? How's everything going with you?
Well, you know what? I'm doing real well, being that I had an opportunity to at least get some revenge on Clemson before I left the University of Virginia. But nonetheless, man, I'm blessed to be here. I'm happy to be on, have some opportunity to break bread with you and talk a little bit about the game, talk about my career. But appreciate you having me here as a guest, man. I'm doing well.
Hey, man, this is a big treat for me. So if I get a little too excited, don't worry. I'm passionate about the game of football. I'm passionate about being around outstanding individuals. So just take it kind. But let's start from the beginning with you. You were born in Danville, Virginia. Just you and your sister, being raised by your mother. What was your life like growing up?
Danville, Virginia is more of an industrial type place, not a huge population, just north of Greensboro, North Carolina. So even before I went to Virginia, I heard more about UNC and NC State and those schools and Duke, more so than I heard about the University of Virginia being so close to the border. My mother, Mary, did the best she could. She was a person who taught me tremendous values growing up because she was as a single parent. She had to work multiple jobs, just as most parents in that housing development place where I grew up. They had, that's what you saw. That was everyday life. But yet we weren't going to utilize that as excuses for not to succeed or to go out and be good people and do great things. So I was blessed to have that person that was so strong as a role model.
You started playing football at the age of 6, right? Did you know this is something I wanted to do? Did you love the game instantly? Did you have any, trials and tribulations at that time in your career when you got started?
I remember going out and the kids, they were just so much bigger. And we used to do this thing called bull in the ring. And that's when you would go around and everyone just starts, picking a guy and the coach would pick a guy and then you just kind of go head to head and hit each other. And I remember that day, I ended up, after a practice or two, I ended up quitting. And I told my mom, I couldn't do it anymore. And she says, you know what? If you start something, you got to finish it. She says, you know what?
Yeah.
You got to make a promise to me that you will never quit anything that you start. You put your mind to it. You figure out a way to adapt and you work it out. But don't just quit. And I remember I went back. And since then, I've never really quit anything I've ever done. And that was a big lesson that I learned even at the early age of 6.
What athletes had the biggest influence on you as a kid?
I grew up watching Pittsburgh, man, watching Blair, watching Harris, watching Mean Joe. But my guy, John Stallworth. So when I in high school, when I had the opportunity to finally put on an actual number 80, in that sequence of jerseys, I chose number 82. So it was always Pittsburgh and the Cowboys. And you know how that rivalry went. And so I had to always pretend like when I was out there in the street, when I was out there playing tackle out there. And I don't know why we didn't play. Here's one thing. I'm going to digress a little bit. I don't understand why we didn't play football on the grass instead of playing tackle in the street. You know what I mean?
No question. Yeah. But Herman, one thing about playing tackle on the street, because I did that also, I think it was a foolish thing to do, but you had to establish toughness and you had to establish the ability to not fall. Because you don't want to get tackled on concrete. And we all know those scrapes on that concrete, especially when you're taking a bath, They don't feel too good. That was one thing. I'm like, I got to be good enough to not get tackled and to not fall down.
Turf burn and street burn, two totally different things.
No question. You said something back then. No, they hit differently.
He reached back out to my high school coach, said he was with the University of Virginia, and that he'd be interested in knowing if any other teams were looking at me or scouting me. And he was like, no, that's our kicker.
Let's get back into football. In high school, you continue to go on and keep your football career going, but you're not seeing a lot of playing time. You're standing on the sidelines more than standing on the football field. But you were the starting kicker. Didn't know that.
I wasn't playing a lot. I was our starting kicker. In fact, I ended up winning, I think, district honors as a kicker. Set our school record at the time. I don't know if it still stands, but it's 48-yard field goal. Mark Mosley out of Washington, straight on kicker, was the guy that I kind of emulated as a kicker. And I was frustrated because I was excelling in basketball. At that point, I started excelling in track and field. I was over 7 feet as a high jumper. And football was the only one that the sport I played the longest, but I was having the least amount of success.
But there was a certain game against Albemarle your senior year that was significant for you in your high school career. Tell us a little bit about what happened.
Ed Martin, who was the head coach at the time, was good friends with Tom Sherman from the University of Virginia, who was a scout that was there, but also he was the quarterback and also the receivers coach. And he was there visiting. We were GW Danville was facing his team's son. His son was the quarterback, and he was just there to watch a regular game. And the coaches that put me in, we wanted to preserve a victory, so he put me in for a Hail Mary, and he asked me to knock the ball down. Needless to say, it's not that I always disobey and go against the grain, but I came out of nowhere and soared over everyone and intercepted the pass, which happened to be my only interception during my high school career. Mm-hmm. And the scout was like, who is that number 82? That guy's got pretty good hands. And I remember he reached back out to my high school coach, said he was with the University of Virginia, and that he'd be interested in knowing if any other teams were looking at me or scouting me. And he was like, no, that's our kicker. But he does have good hands, good leaping ability. He's a good athlete. And they saw something in me prior to me actually hitting that plateau as a wide receiver. And the University of Virginia was the one who got the ball started.
And also doing what you were not supposed to do. Because if you don't actually catch the football, you don't showcase your ball skills, your hands, being able to catch it at the highest point. And that scout might not have been intrigued about, oh, who is that? If you would have knocked the ball down. So the one time being disobedient actually was the best thing you could have done. I think so, right?
It was a blessing. You can't make that stuff up. And it was divine.
Your true fans may know this. Some fans might not know this, but you initially committed to Virginia Tech. What made you decide to do that? What made you decide to do that?
The folks over there in Blacksburg, I know they never let me live it down. And thank goodness, man, I played well. And I really gave the business to Tech when I played them. Because otherwise they would have never let me live it down. Met Frank Beamer, Coach Beamer, awesome guy, wonderful person. And I think he was the sole reason I actually signed initially and committed. I won't say signed. Let's say verbally committed to Virginia Tech. And but then Virginia called and said, hey, will you give us one more opportunity and have you come over to UVA? We want to introduce you to, kind of our facilities and what we do. And they paired me up with Herman Moore from Martinsville, who ended up being my quarterback. He was telling me about all these passes he was going to throw me and how he was probably feeding me a lot at that time because I wasn't even going to come in as a starter. And I ultimately changed my mind and signed. I took off my helmet, threw it on the field. I took off my shoes and left them on the field. I took off my pants. And all of a sudden I started realizing, man, I'm going to be out of clothes if I don't, I don't have enough clothes to make it up here to the top.
Transitioning back to your UVA career, you and your coach, Coach Welsh, you guys were bumping heads a little bit. You almost quit the team, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us a little bit about that story.
So one day we were at practice and Herman Moore threw the ball to me on the right side of a real quick hitch route, and it got tipped at the line of scrimmage, and the ball just kind of got knocked down, and it kind of rolled by me. And I was walking back to the huddle, and Coach Welsh said, Herman, don't just walk back. You got to run back. He wasn't picking on me. He was picking at the fact that he had a process, he had expectation, and he had a protocol in terms of what he expected out of us as a unit and as a team. And I was in the wrong and not realizing it at that young age. I was basically like being defiant. And he just said, you know what? Get out of here. Get out of here. And all of a sudden I said, you want me to leave? I'll leave. He says, yeah, you're off the team. And I said, well, I'll leave. And then he says, when you get in there, take off. Basically he said, like, take off my stuff, like as if it was his stuff, right? Like the university stuff. So I took off my helmet, threw it on the field. I took off my shoes and left them on the field. Took off my pants. And all of a sudden I started realizing, man, I'm going to be out of clothes if I don't, I don't have enough clothes to make it up here to the top. So they were going to have to wait to get all their clothes. I realized I was wrong. I went back. I was at a crossroad. Do I stay or do I humble myself and say, you know what, young man, you've made a mistake. You are not there yet. And this is not the way that you want to be viewed. And I went back and I remember talking to Coach Welsh and I apologized to him. And I asked him if I could get back on the team. And just like in Coach Welsh, he says, yeah, you can come back on the team, but my expectations haven't changed. I expect you to hustle. I expect you to run. I expect you to do anything and everything I'm asking everyone else to do. You're no different. And from that day forward, he and I were like this. And the tremendous amount of respect that I have for him and had for him is unbelievable. And we became very, very close, very close.
Was there a particular moment, Herman, at Virginia when you first got into the lineup playing a lot more that you really felt you felt like you had the potential to be a real good player? Is there a particular moment that, happened for you?
I was always looking for opportunity during practice. I always felt that if you did it in practice, the game became easy. And while the nervousness doesn't go away, the preparedness is where you get your confidence in sports. And I felt that the opportunity needed to come, but I had some good players that were in front of me. Tim Finkelstein, number 84, we were playing Penn State and he had gotten injured. And we were playing at home and all of a sudden, I expected to get some playing time, but I didn't expect it would come so abruptly and that it would come against Penn State. And I went in and I think one of my routes was called over the middle and I was able to just go in, make a really cool catch in midair, almost turning my body as I was making the catch before I even hit the ground and before the players hit me. And at that moment, I realized this is real. I'm here.
Play action. He looks long for Herman Moore. Moore inside the 10, leaps and makes the catch.
You never know where the opportunity is going to come.
Herman Moore, and he's all alone. Moore at the 10, still on his feet, spins toward the end zone, 5, and touchdown.
Are you prepared to take a hold of the opportunity that's given to you?
Looking for Herman Moore. Herman Moore's got a step on Swilling. He's got the ball and a touchdown for Virginia.
Or will you squander it?
He will go alley-oop to Moore. There's the record. An NCAA record, 9th game in a row this season. Jordan on the coverage, but there's simply no way you can stay with him, Jack. He's too big and he's got that great jumping ability.
In 1990, you guys, rose to be number 1 in the polls. What was that season like?
That year was special because we had to go out. We had to take down the Clemsons. We had to go take down some of the Penn States, and that kind of stuff. So once we did that, the nation started to take notice. And that meant a lot to not only just the UVA program, but to the ACC as a whole, because we were finally on the map. We were getting recognition as being not just an academic institution, but also from an athletic standpoint. We had some really good athletes that were in the ACC, and number 1 meant everything to us. It was a wild place. It was one that I think helped us in the recruiting, but it also, again, it challenged us to then move to that next level.
Your career was unbelievable. One of the best wide receivers to ever play there for Virginia. If you had to pick one play that's probably the most memorable play for you at UVA, what play is it?
You know what? I would think it would have to be playing against Penn State. Having 2 touchdowns in that game just really put me over the top in terms of knowing where I needed to excel and what I need to do on a regular basis.
And of course, you're a multi-talented player. You didn't just do football. You ran track and field as well. But I understand you met someone special on that team. Who is that? Who was that special someone?
So everyone always talks about, track and field was my thing. I ended up meeting my future wife, not knowing that was going to be my future wife. She was ran track at EC Glass. I knew of her. She was a recruit, and then she was thinking about getting a scholarship there. And then ultimately she ended up doing that. And so I had an opportunity to see her every day from that time forward. But yeah, it was, so I ended up meeting my future wife, who I'm still married to there. So, and she's a UVA grad, UVA athlete, and two wonderful grown men now, 29 and 27. Detroit's on the clock, 10th pick overall. Commissioner announces my name. My life changes.
Eventually, you decided to go pro. Were you aware that you will be a first rounder? Did you think you would go that high? Tell us a little bit about that process.
Not many people know the first team that came knocking was Denver with the 4th pick. I met with Coach Reeves and his team had flown out to Denver. And that's when I got a dose of reality that, this is really happening. When they flew me out to meet with them and meet with their organization. And it was either myself or linebacker Mike Kroll. And they end up taking him with the 4th pick. So Elway would have to wait, and I didn't have an opportunity to play with him as a quarterback. But then I spoke with Dallas, and I spoke with Detroit. Wayne Fontes visited me, the head coach for the Detroit Lions at the University of Virginia. And he basically told me point blank, I thought he was going to work me out. I had my gloves on. I had my gear on. We're at Scott Stadium. And all we did is walk around the field talking for about an hour. And then he says, we're going to take you with the 10th pick if you're available, if you're still on the board. And I was like, okay, you ready for me to run some routes? And he was like, no, that was it. And that was it. And then when the time came, Detroit's on the clock, 10th pick overall, commissioner announces my name, my life changes. Because I never would have envisioned that this childhood dream of playing tackle football in the streets in a housing project to all of a sudden being a first-round pick, the first receiver taken in the 1991 NFL draft, and now on my way on to Motown. Definitely
your impact is still being felt there in Detroit when it comes to the wide receiver position. What was your welcome to the NFL moment?
Welcome to the NFL moment was preseason. San Francisco, we were playing, and I had never really played under the lights. And at that time, we had never even practiced in the Silverdome under the lights. And there's blind spots. Anyone who's ever been in a stadium, Coach Fontes wanted to get me acclimated. Hey, wanted to have me the first round draft pick. Introduced me to the fans of Detroit. Real quick run and shoot route to the flat. I was in the slot. Andre Ware throws me a pass. I drop it. I mean, it hit me right in the hands. And all of a sudden, it was like no big deal. Everybody's thinking, okay, the nerves, the jitters. Coach Fontes says, run it again. Call the same play. Ran it to the flat. He hit it, threw it to me, hit me right in the hands again. Same exact play. Dropped it.
You dropped it?
All of a sudden, you can start to hear the crowd get a little weird. And then the guys in the huddle are all looking at me side-eyed like I had 5 heads. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting there like really nervous at this point. Coach Fontes said, run it again. I could see it on the sideline. He just kind of waves his hands like this. I was like, at that point, my heart's like, it's like beating through my chest. Ran it to the right again. Andre Ware throws me a pass slightly high and behind me. I got hit and dropped it. I've never known that you could boo that loud to one player. First round draft pick, and everyone thought I was a bust at that point. Wow. That's true story.
So you dropped three straight passes.
3 passes in a row. All 3. Dropped all 3.
Wow.
And they booed me. And then to add insult to injury, when I finally did catch a pass, I broke free, was running down the middle, got hit, got tackled, dislocated my shoulder.
Oh. What? All in the same game?
So welcome to the NFL.
You dropped 3 passes in in the first preseason game and hurt your shoulder, and you know they already ready to put the bust label on you. The bust, oh, he's a bust.
All day. And I'm out trying to buy a new car, and this car dealership is right near the highway, or not the highway, it's like a little freeway, but you can see the cars coming by. And I don't know if it's because, I had high top fade, but my brother ain't got small ears, so my ears was right, whatever. And so I remember somebody just noticed me and was driving down the street and said, "Herman Moore, you suck." I'm like, so I'm calling my mom like, you know what, Ma, I don't know if this is going to work out. And she was like, "You remember what I told you? You're not allowed to quit." Cause I was like, I was coming close. Cause I was like, man, this is crazy.
Could you sum up your Detroit Lions career, and do you believe you should be in the Hall of Fame?
To sum up my career, I think it was solid. I gave what I had, even when injured at times, and I just wish that I could have played it out under my terms at the level I think I deserve. But at the same time, I'm blessed, and I'm thankful for the opportunity that was given to me, and I love the fans. They've been there for me during my career, after my career. They've just embraced me inside of the communities that I see throughout Michigan. So I couldn't ask of a better support base. But the Hall of Fame, yeah, they need to ring my phone. That's all I gotta say. I can't play in 2010. I can play in the other eras before or after. But when I played during my time, I think you'd find it hard to say why I should be left out.
Tell us, what are you up to now?
I've always wanted to be a business person, and I decided to start getting into that early. I got into franchising, and at one point, for those of you who have eaten 5,000 calorie cinnamon rolls, I used to own all of the Cinnabons in Michigan, and then all the ones that were in Florida.
And what about Tackle Life Foundation? What is that?
So the Tackle Life Foundation, I've always been a part of a community and give back. I'm an advocate of development of youth, as you can tell, based on my story and my career. We do everything from coding programs to one of the bigger initiatives right now is our entrepreneurship program. We find individuals or we get funding to help them see that dream come true.
He is Herman Moore, one of the best wide receivers ever played in the ACC, clearly the best wide receiver to come through Virginia. A guy that had an outstanding career. He should be getting that call soon. Let's keep it real. Look at his numbers in Detroit, especially some of the teams he played on. When he was on the football field, he balled. He was extremely consistent. So Hall of Fame, y'all know what time it is. Go ahead and let's get this momentum going. Herman Moore joining me here. Brian McFadden on the rise. Until next time. Be sure to check in for more Rise shows and also other original programming and memorable games on Origin Sports.